teacher, as I said before, but I'm also a parent. I have the unique perspective of having sat at both sides of the table in an IEP meeting. So I've been able, the start of my experience with IEPs was from the very legal perspective of I'm the, representing the school district and I need to provide this and I need to provide that sort of thing. So I have the understanding and background of like what needs to go in an IEP from a classroom perspective. And then I also then became the parent of a special education student who's now required to come to those meetings and have a strategy and a game plan in place. And what I learned about the process from being on the other side of the table as a teacher is that they're not coming up with ideas, not a lot's going to go into the IEP. And a student with dyslexia needs a lot of support. So what I'm going to do today is kind of show you like a really kind of the easiest possible way to kind of strategize how to get support for your child in an IEP. And then hopefully my goal is at the end is I can kind of reveal some of the problems that my son had in different ways that I've been able to work some things into the IEP to support him. So the first thing I want to do is I just want to know, just kind of briefly, with a smaller group, which is nice because last 2 hours have been intimidating. That room was intimidating, that room was intimidating, so this is nice. This is just more like people. So I just kind of real quickly would like to know, are you a parent or are you a teacher? So are you here to learn about how to strategize from as a parent perspective or a teacher?
Parent.
Ooh, nice. Teacher. Parent. Aunt. All right. Yeah, we got the extended family power. Like you guys going together? Are you related?
Yeah.
You go together as a team?
Oh yeah.
Nice. I like that. Which one? Are you the bad cop shooting your cap? How do you guys play it up? You talk about it
I'm
all the time.
probably the more aggressive one.
You're the more aggressive. Yeah. See, I'm the aggressive one, and my husband doesn't say anything, and then it's great because what they don't realize is he's actually the aggressive one. So when he does say something, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, you don't made him mad, right? What are you here for? Parent.
And parent.
And a parent. Okay, so we have 2 teachers and then parents. So I'm going to be talking about it then likely more from a parental perspective. So if there's a teacher thing that you feel like I'm leaving out, let me know. Okay. So what I found for me when I went to my first IEP meeting, I found that I was really kind of armed in a way that really surprised the administration. So let me do my start. I'm sorry. So here's me. I work with special education kids all the time. So this is one of my classes right now. This is an inclusion class right here. Can you spot the dyslexics? Right, they don't come with a sign, do they? So this is an inclusion class that I'm working with. Several dyslexic kids in there and students with dyslexia, I'm sorry. And then this is my son. That's us on a camping trip. That's in his happy place because there's no words. So he's very happy there. So I'm surrounded by students with dyslexia. And if you want to see this presentation again, if you write down this here, I made a video of it so that you could share it with your district or another parent or something like that. Now, this is not an official evidence-based plan on how to actually do IEP stuff. This is just based on my personal experiences and success that I've had implementing and getting support for my child, and then also now working with other students. So essentially what I found was when I went into my first IEP meeting, I was armed in a way that really surprised the people that were sitting across from me, the administrators, and so they didn't realize I was a teacher. So I felt like right away I probably was given a little bit more respect than some of the parents have been given, and I could do the teacher talk. That parents, my husband's experience was much more intimidating, much more confusing. He didn't understand some of the terminology. He didn't understand the testing. He didn't even understand really what the word assessment meant. They kept on saying it over and over and over again. So it was an interesting dynamic to sit with him through this meeting where he has no idea what's going on. And then here I am armed with the information and the knowledge and can have a real actual interactive conversation. And it really made me realize that there's a need to help parents understand this stuff and to create a safe space for parents to ask questions. Because at the IEP meeting, you're trying not to let your guard down and ask a silly question. And one of the things that I've seen in IEP meetings is once the parent kind of asks like a silly question, I find that my colleagues kind of like, it's going to be okay, everything's fine, don't worry, we're meeting your son's needs. And that's not necessarily true. So I would like to be able to give you guys just a good strategy and a game plan to do it. Once I started developing and really working with my son's IEPs, I put it out there on Facebook. I developed a Facebook group of just parents in my district. And what I found was that a lot of parents were like, I don't even know what any of this stuff means. Can you help me? Can you walk me through this? I got this thing, they're calling it an ER. I don't know what that means. There's like all these acronyms, Wyatt, and all these things. I have no idea what these things mean. And they're saying he has this and he has that. And I don't know what any of these numbers mean. Could you help me through it? And I was like, sure, absolutely. So then it kicked out to like, I needed to be able to help people a little bit more. So what I tried to do was come up with a very strategic, right-brained way of thinking about IEPs so that you can go in with the game plan so that it's not just you guys sitting at the table and being like, how's it going? You think he's doing good? Okay. Okay? Because again, a lot of times stuff doesn't get in unless you advocate for it, especially with dyslexia. It's so not understood. So what I did was I tried to put it down into a 3-step program. Okay? The first one is to assess the needs. So essentially what we're trying to do there is we're trying to figure out what's my child's needs. Do they actually need help in? Develop goals, and I'll explain what a goal is because that can be confusing too. And then SDIs, what is that? It sounds terrible. It sounds like something teachers warned you against in health class, right? So like, what is that supposed to mean? And how do you get that? And what are good ones, right? So I will walk you through this 3-step process. And I apologize if anybody's like, oh, she's simplifying it too much. That was the point. I'm trying to simplify it for you. So the first thing you want to do is you want to look at what your child needs. And this can be really, really difficult at times. So any paperwork that they give you, you want to keep. You also want to ask for them to send it to you digitally. Okay? Now listen, I'm going to say these things as if I'm telling you. My brother says you're so bossy when you talk is always like you have to do it. So what I'm saying you have to. I'm making the suggestion that you should ask for a digital copy. Okay? Because what I found out really quickly was after like the 2nd year, I ran out of space to put all these important paper copies. So I just have them send me that, like, oh, that's great, thanks, you put it in this book bag, I'll take a look at that. Can you just send me an electronic copy too, send me a PDF over, and then I can just dump it in a file for later review. Because you're gonna wanna go to that ER, it's the evaluation report. You wanna use the evaluation report over and over and over again. Because that's like the key, that's the clutch. And that's what parents don't spend a lot of time reading, and that's why some things aren't supported and kids end up with IEPs that aren't in any way meeting their needs. So you want to look at that evaluation report. I'm going to show you how to look at the evaluation report. So the first thing you want to do is you want to know what your student's IQ is. Okay, that's clutch. That's like a really important thing, is to know what your student's IQ is. Because if you're talking about someone with a high IQ, you're going to need more support because they changed the federal law a few years ago. The Supreme Court ruled that it's not just a free appropriate public education, it's an ambitiously appropriate public education. So it's, whoa, look at that. Do you do that during the meetings? What do they do when you do that during the meetings? I need to get me one. I have like a meeting in 2 months. I'm going to get one. Where did you get that? You went to Spain?
Well, I lived there.
Okay, so I have to go to Spain during the coronavirus outbreak to get a fan to intimidate people during the IEP meeting.
Amazon.
Amazon, all right, that's a better idea. That's better. I was a bagger, she was just like, look at me. Loved it. It's amazing. So essentially, you want to look at the student's IQ because if the student has a really high IQ, essentially what the Supreme Court says then is they're supposed to be meeting that need. So if they're like in the 93rd percentile, they should be getting scores in the 93rd percentile. That's what their IQ says they're capable of. And I hold my son's school to that. I hold them accountable for that.
And they will fight you tooth and nail to get that test.
To get the IQ test? No, it's the first part of the evaluation report. It's the first thing.
No, some of the school districts.
It's just coming up as a,
I don't
it should
even
be
know.
the first test. That's the
Yeah.
first thing they do.
And that was, they'll have to reevaluate that this year again.
But they don't have an IQ test that asks for an evaluation outside,
Oh
independent.
yeah, I will.
Yeah, because they need an IQ. That's how they determine whether or not the child's eligible for a disability.
Oh right, no,
Yeah.
I just,
Yeah,
my school district fought me tooth and nail for it.
for the IQ test. Interesting. Okay.
And for all the testing.
Okay. Oh, okay, for the evaluation. Okay, so assuming your child gets approved for the evaluation, I missed that first step. So you got to put in you got to put in for the evaluation, Then once you get the evaluation, now it's like looking at the actual evaluation. So now we're at the point where the child study team said that they should be looked at. They did the testing, now we're looking at the testing. So the first test at the top would be the IQ test. So you want to figure out what your child's IQ is. Then you want to go through with a fine-tooth comb, and you want to try to figure out any area in which your child is average or above average. So if your child has an average IQ, and you're going through, you want to look for anywhere in the test where it says average or above, because that's your child's strength. That means that they're testing where they should be. Okay, so you're going to look for that, and you want to identify what the strengths are. Then the next thing you want to do is you want to look for anything in which they're below what the IQ suggests. So if the IQ is high average range, anything that is below high average range you want to highlight, because that then becomes a need. So you want to have strengths and you want to have needs. And what will happen on the actual IEP is you're going to have two different sections. Now in a perfect world, we develop goals for their strengths too, because we want them to have, but that doesn't ever, we fight so hard just to get their needs done that we're not putting in goals for their strengths. So, but we use that as a point of reference. We use that as a point of reference. We want to know what they're strong in and then what their needs are. So that's what you want to do with the evaluation. Figure out the IQ, take a green pen, take a yellow pen, green highlighter, yellow highlighter. Green is the strengths, anything that is where the IQ is at or above it. And then yellow is anything that's below where the IQ would suggest. Does that make sense the way I'm saying it? Okay, cool. All right, so here we have the next step. I'm sorry, still the same step. We're going to analyze what the needs are. So when you get that evaluation report, we're still not even in IEP land. When you get the evaluation report, they're going to tell you what they see the needs are. Okay, so they're going to go through and they're going to write down what they see the needs are based on the test. And you're thinking over there. You're wondering if it matches, right?
I'm trying to, so long ago, she's going into 7th grade, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to think back to her assessment.
Yeah, the paperwork is clutch. Is she going to be up for a reeval soon? Because every 3 years you should get a reeval.
She gets I don't know, she's an IEP meeting every year.
Take a look and see. It should be every 3 years.
Meeting to get tested
Again, yep. We'll worry about that. You can waive it, and they may likely say, do you want to waive it? Never waive it.
I don't even know that I've been offered that.
Yeah, every 3 years, they should be reevaluated. So when was your child played?
3rd grade,
Okay.
she's in 6th. Oh, so it should be.
Should have been last year.
Okay.
Yeah. So you want to get a reevaluation because they change, their needs change, their brain changes.
What do I add? Say
A reevaluation saying, yeah, I'm at the 3-year point or past the 3-year point, I believe. I'd like to get the reevaluation that I'm entitled to.
Did you have to specify to include, I mean, I always say to include testing, blah, 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 just to make sure.
Okay.
I don't know if you understand that or if it always includes it.
My emails are usually very extensive and angry, so lately I included that part.
You actually should say that because
There we go.
if you do not, they will just regurgitate the original testing from the testing from the original ER.
Wait, which
Okay.
is that?
I-
So
that's
you
what
want
we
to
do.
say that you want a reeval to include
New
the
testing.
New testing, yeah.
Testing.
New testing, just something vague like that.
Well, I think I put like, I don't know what I put, but yeah.
Because we have middle schoolers that were identified in elementary school and their RERs or RR are just redoing the testing from 2nd grade.
Wow.
It's just restating, re-summarizing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's not retesting, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Well, it's you're still
And
they're
You're
that's-
still evaluating whether or not they
reevaluating
qualify,
them.
yes.
And that's
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
are the things that you should ask to be retested for? I didn't catch that.
So you would just ask for a full evaluation that to include testing. So you go with whatever their language skills, they would have it in there. If you wanted, you could take the same tests that were written down in the first evaluation and have those, just put that in there. What language did you get when you get that? What language do you recommend?
I would just request that it be fresh testing. And there's a spot on there that says new, using existing data or new information needed. And we always, as I'm a special ed teacher, what we are told to do is use existing data unless a parent is
Oh,
is pushing back on that.
And in
And-
writing,
and typically-
a letter too, like.
And typically, if you are still qualifying the student, there's never an issue, but if you want fresh, we want fresh information too.
And it changes,
not-
I mean, my son's IQ, it changes every year, that's how we figure out.
And they
the
say it
resolution.
doesn't, but it does.
Yeah, because it's executive functioning is different.
Do I need to ask for like an educational evaluation?
She's saying, yeah, so you just, yeah. ask to
You're
be-
going to get you will get, permission to sign off to reevaluate.
Okay.
Just write on that you want new testing done. Yeah, you'll have to sign off permission to reeval.
Okay.
Like a formal come, so you'll send an
Yes.
email saying you want them reevaluated, they'll send the form out, you'll click with fresh testing. I think mine included like what areas of concern do you have, like the little
Yeah.
questionnaire still?
Fill it out, yes.
Okay.
Because
And-
oftentimes we get nothing back, and
Yeah.
then that's what happens.
And I would say, I will be looking forward to receiving whatever paperwork I need to complete to.
Okay.
And we want that. Like I'm hearing like a lot of, it's not an us and that we want that. As the kids' teachers, we want that, but they aren't going to do it unless it comes from you.
Yeah.
In my situation, the building principal fought us tooth and nail for the building principal changed from kindergarten to first grade. From first grade through third grade, we received every line of bullshit I've ever heard in why he did not work for an IEP. And so unfortunately I have a 12th grader, but I think I can manipulate him enough to get retested. But the situation is that the school districts don't want to spend the money.
Well, you know what, like, we could spend forever talking about the
But
whys, but I really honestly am at a point where I'm like, let's just get to the hows.
And-
How do we get the kids the support?
And
Because the why part I found for a long time I was on the why, and it made me sad, and it made me depressed. And and I was bringing that home.
Right, and the thing for me is, we want the kid to succeed, we want the school district to succeed.
Sure.
It's frustrating to us as parents, and most of us parents are burned out from
It is an incredibly frustrating process, 1000%. And that's where the us, them, thing
Right.
comes, and you know. Ah! Even my computer's frustrated. What happened? It's not, there we go. Ah! Oh, no, that one here. Oh, that one here. Okay, so then you want to go through, you want to analyze the needs. You want to make sure that the needs that's written there, you're seeing in the actual eval. And there's been times where there were things that I was like, wait a second, I'm seeing this, where his math score was low. And he doesn't have a disability in reading, he doesn't have a disability in math, but because he can't access the math, or even worse, because he was being pulled from math to get the special reading services, because that's the only time the person could come, his math scores went down. So now he's showing that he has this disability in reading that wasn't showing up on there because they were like, oh, you just wanted us to take a look at his reading scores. So you want to go through and you want to find what those needs are. And when you're in the meeting, you want to talk about those needs. So you want to make sure that what they have as needs and what you see as needs are consistent. Okay? And usually there's not a lot of like vitriol with that. As long as you show them the data, like, oh, I missed that. And a lot of times, it's a lot, guys. It's a lot to read. It's a lot of attention to detail in the data. It's usually several cups of coffee and a couple glasses of wine to get through it. Okay? That's how I get through my son's stuff. So once you get done that, my recommendation is to get it into a data table. Okay? Start thinking about things conceptually. Take that data table to the meeting with you. So I write down his needs. So when I'm having the conversation, I'm now in a place, and I make the data table look like this, to have a thoughtful conversation. Because essentially when you're going into the classroom, when you're going into the IEP meeting, these are the things that are going to be discussed. Should there be a goal? Or should there be an SDI? Or should there be both? Okay? And yeah.
What is an SDI?
SDI is specially designed instruction. So these are the things that teachers do to help the students in the class in real time to access the curriculum. The goals would be whether or not we're determining whether or not what we're doing is actually working and the students making adequate gains. So the goals are incredibly important, but the SDIs help support the student to get the goals, okay? So you want to try to figure out and have a game plan. So you know now going into the meeting, these are the things that you should be talking about and having a conversation. And you know, the people I work with, my son's team, They know it's gonna be a long conversation. My son has a ton of needs, okay? And we're gonna go through it. We're gonna hatch out each and every single one, and the team's gonna stay there. And it's just gonna be what it's gonna be. It gets tiring and it gets exhausting. I recommend lots of water, take a break if you need to. And if somebody leaves the meeting that you're not comfortable with because time is up, you have to pause the meeting and you reschedule it. Okay, and you have those rights. And again, another big thing too is that it needs to occur at a mutually agreeable time and place. They don't tell you that. They'll tell you it has to occur during the contract hours. That's a lie. Federal government states that you have a right to be at that meeting. They want you to be at that meeting as an equal member. So if they're telling you that they can't stay after 3 o'clock, or the meeting can only be 45 minutes because the teacher's prep is over, then you say, I'm sorry, I'm gonna reschedule that. We need to reschedule that. And if they can't reschedule during a mutually agreeable time and place, then you file a complaint with the Department of Ed because they're out of compliance. Okay, so I always schedule my meetings. I'm sorry, I can't be there until 3, and we will likely go till 5:30. I would like all of the members to be prepared to stay until 5:30. If everybody cannot stay, then please reschedule it for a time that everybody can, is what I would tell them. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
That's maybe jumping ahead. Would an SDI be included in the 504 or
Yeah.
is that?
So they call them accommodations in the 504.
Okay.
Yeah, the same type of
That
concept.
is the same.
Mm-hmm. We just don't measure them and track them. They're not like an
That sounds great.
Huh?
We don't measure them and.
SDIs, no, because your child has a disability, but it's not impacting their learning, so they're not, yeah. But if you have an SDI that looks like it's supposed to be tracked, then it might need to be an IEP and not a goal. I mean, not a 504, yeah. All right, so now you have this data table. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna develop goals. So when you're in the meeting, and you wanna talk to the teachers, if you can think ahead, if you know enough about what happens in a classroom or what's accessible, you could probably go in with some ideas of what a goal could be. But if you really don't, if you don't know teacher talk, and you don't know curriculum talk, you don't know standards talk, then just say, all right, I would like to discuss, I would like to use my data table, and essentially what I would like to do is I would like to discuss, can this need, which was on your data table, be improved through a school intervention? Have that conversation. So here's an example. So my son's first need is improve oral reading fluency. Fluency means how fast he reads. So we sit at the table and I say, okay guys, let's take a look at that. First of all, explain to me what you think fluency means, and then we make sure we have the same working understanding. Because if the teacher thinks one thing of what fluency is and I'm thinking fluency is something else, we can go in circles, back and forth and feeling unsatisfied and unheard. So always look, what do you think, when you say fluency, what do you mean by fluency? And then they'll tell me that, okay, so now we have working language together, common language. And then I'll say to them, so what do you think? Do you think this is something that could be improved through a goal? And then they talk about it. We talk about it as a team. And in this case, I think definitely, or fluency can be something that can be improved. So if it can be improved through an intervention, then it becomes a goal. So my son's gonna get specially designed instruction that is going to hopefully become improved. And therefore we're gonna track it, so now it's a goal. Okay? Another thing, improved decoding skills. Can that be something that could be improved through an intervention? Yes, therefore we're gonna make a goal for it. Once you get goals, that's how you get interventions. Okay, so you wanna get the goals into the IEP. And then I also too, I wanna caution you this, just as a high school teacher, I see this constantly as they get into middle school. I see it in my district, and I don't know about her district, so I don't wanna speak for all districts, but in my district, I see that they'll play the, your son needs to be a little bit more independent, so we're gonna pull back on some of the goals. His needs haven't been met. I've been told, oh, you have 10 goals in here. It's a lot of pressure on your son. He's fine. He's good. Thanks for asking. Keep him in there. You look like you're feeling uncomfortable with this, but we're gonna stick with it. But thank you. I appreciate you considering. So written expression, including capitalization, punctuation, and spelling. Is this something that can be improved? Is it something that we could track? Yes. So now we're gonna make that a goal as well. Math facts. Is that something that's measurable and could be improved through an intervention? Yes. So I'm going to have a goal for that. How about fine motor coordination? Yes. How about handwriting? Yes. Keyboarding skills, because my son's got dyspraxia, a little bit different than dysgraphia. His fingers don't physically work. He's got a Chiari malformation, so he's got this problem where his brain stem and his skull meets, and so that his limbs don't get the right messages. So handwriting is really hard, so we've been teaching him keyboarding. So can keyboarding be improved through an intervention? Yes, in fact, it has to be improved. Behavioral skills, okay? The kid's got a lot of behavioral issues. He's a victim of PTSD. When he was 3 years old, he was getting a surgery, and he woke up during it. At 3 years old. We didn't know about this until he was 5 and he could actually articulate it. Yeah. So it started first with the man in the mask. Man in the mask, man in the mask. Then it went to the man in the mask with the bright light overhead. The man in the mask with the bright light overhead that was cutting and sawing at his feet, which is he had foot surgery. Yeah. So it took us a long time therapy to get there, and you know, we've done some work with him, but he's got classic PTSD. So when, you know, imagine you're a child, you're a little kid sitting on an operating table. Apparently they say he didn't feel anything. He did. He couldn't move, but he didn't feel anything, but he could see and was awake. So what would you feel like if you were,
You couldn't say anything.
and you couldn't say anything, right? Just what does that feel like in your chest? You want to hit somebody, you want to punch somebody, you want to move, you want to scream, you want to shout, you want to get somebody's attention, right? So apparently, there's years of therapy, when he's in frustrating situations that make him feel uncomfortable or out of control, he goes right back to that first moment where he dealt with feelings of being out of control. So he's got a lot of behavioral issues, a lot of like reaction stuff. You can't engage him in a power struggle. It doesn't help that he's a giant human. He's a giant man. So we have a lot of behavioral stuff in there, and that certainly gets in the way, but is that something with interventions that we would like to be improved? Yes, so now we're gonna make a goal for it. Anxiety, he's got a lot of anxiety because he can't control things, and you'd be a little anxious too if you have one of your earliest memories is the man with the mask cutting your foot, right? So he's got a lot of control issues and generalized anxiety issues. But I came to the conclusion with my team that that wasn't necessarily something that could be improved with a goal. That was something we were going to have to do some heavy lifting with therapy outside of school. But you're going to see it does end up coming up in the SDI comment and certainly be supported. Okay? So we're in the meeting and we're going through and I'm telling my one, you know, these are the things, and you would have that collaborative conversation, that back and forth. Like, really, you don't think math facts could be improved? He did like a special intervention with him and just met with him, you know, 10 minutes a day, or maybe like twice a week for 20 minutes. You don't think that those math facts could be improved? You know what, maybe they could. All right, let's put in a math intervention for him. Let's get a goal and see if his facts would be. So that's how you have that conversation. So then, how do you write a goal? And a lot of times, you're not going to be asked to write a goal, but as the parent, you're going to have to sign off on if the goal is good. And as teachers in the general curriculum, we get really frustrated when the goals are bad. And we see a lot of like, just like, what? It's not even English, I don't even understand, this is so weird. And I see that as like a teacher with a master's degree. I wonder what some of the stuff that my parents are seeing, right? So what we want the goal to be is we want it to be specific and we want it to be measurable. If you can't measure it, guys, it's not a goal, it's just a wish. Okay, so it's got to be measurable. So here's a goal. I actually like this one. Sometimes there's a lot of rough drafts with my son's IEP. I like this one. So given a passage at his instructional reading level, so wherever he was at, Jake will apply learned decoding and word analysis drills. So the learned decoding is coming from the intervention that he's getting. And word analysis strategies, again, from, in this case it was Orton Gillingham, to increase his oral reading fluency to 110 words per minute on 4 out of 5 weekly trials. His baseline, so what he was doing at the start of this goal, was he was able to read 84 words per minute with 4th grade level prose. Okay, so you want to have that information in there, and you'll see it's specific because it's telling us exactly which things are being assessed, his decoding and his analysis strategies. It's measurable, 110 words per minute, 4 out of 5 weekly trials, but it's also giving me the baseline so I can tell whether or not he does improve. So I've been given goals that didn't have a baseline. We go back to the drawing table, give me that baseline, because otherwise how do I know he improved? How do I know this just wasn't a goal that he already had? Okay? So to me, as a parent, this is a good goal. I was happy with this goal. Okay? And now I can assess whether or not what they're doing, because what the goal does now is they're going to teach them the learned decoding analysis. They're going to teach them that now with the intervention. We've got the goal, and so now they have to provide those learned analysis skills. What I'm going to use the goal for in a month, 2 months, when I get that progress monitoring, is determine whether or not those strategies are working for my son. And if I'm not seeing an improvement, I schedule another meeting and say, okay, you've had him for 2 months now, he's at the same exact baseline, or even worse, he's worse now, he's regressed, program's not working. Parents, you need, and aunts and grandparents, you need to be mindful of the progress monitoring that you're getting. If you're not getting progress monitoring, you need to email them and ask them for it. Demand the progress monitoring. Essentially, that's your report card to whether or not the IEP is working. Teachers, this is one of those things, and I see it all the time, and I'm a victim of it, not a victim, I mess up sometimes. There's not a really awesome way that schools, at least in my school, is collecting data. So I just get like these random emails with the students' initials, and it's usually during grading time, and sometimes they get buried, and then I don't send the progress monitoring. Not because I'm like being rude or like I don't want to, it's just it gets buried among all the 87 other things that I'm doing in a day. And I get that, I'm not angry, I'm not upset when my son's progress monitoring doesn't come out, but I send him back that email, say, hey, I need to see that, I need to see if these programs are working. You don't want to go a year and wait for that next IEP meeting to see that it hasn't worked. Yeah.
So, we might get to this, I'm sorry to interrupt.
That's okay, yeah, go for it.
But it's just, I'm sitting here getting so annoyed with myself and with everything because there were so many things on her IEP that were not a goal. And so how do I like now say we need to revamp this and these things need to be goal? I mean, they were clearly like reading fluency and decoding, not a goal.
Oh.
And I'm like, and now, and
They just
it
have
bothered
it as,
me.
did they have it as an STI? Or did they not even have anything, any reference to it?
They just, like, we had an independent evaluation that talked all about all her stuff that she needed help with, but then like the IEP, I guess I didn't realize it so clearly at the time. I'm sitting here
Now,
now.
how would you? Okay,
Right.
take a moment, pause, give yourself permission to not have known that.
Okay.
Okay, you're okay, you didn't do
Yeah.
anything wrong. Stuff's hard. I got 2 master's degrees and I'm still like, is this right? Late, so just pause and be okay. You haven't done anything wrong, you just now are gonna do better, okay? So what my recommendation for you would be schedule an IEP meeting, say, hey, you know what, I'm just feeling uncomfortable, I feel like some of our needs aren't met. Can we maybe come in and meet as a team at an appropriate time, appropriate place and time for me, and then show up and you can walk through this process and be like, here's some needs for some things, and you can call an IEP meeting anytime you want. Okay, and every time I call an IEP, the IEP opens. So changes get discussed, things get put in. So it's not a whole process. It's not like, you gotta gather all the founders of the country and write the Constitution. It feels like that. It feels like that, yeah.
Should you have the type of, like, the Orton Gillingham is not listed in there?
It is not listed, my school will not list the type of intervention.
Why? Isn't that a part of, like, the stranger test, or like someone else reading it and knowing what to do to reach the goal? Someone reading that wouldn't know.
My understanding is that through the IEP, I did not have a right to dictate what type of program. I could only dictate the goal, and then whether or not I felt like it was being met was what.
So, but they can't put what program they're going to use, because how would you know this is not working and we've been using Orton Gillingham, so let's try something else
So
instead?
in the conversation, you would know.
How come they can't put that in the paper?
I don't know, I just know that my district that I work in, as well as the district that my son's in, they have articulated. Do you have feedback on that?
I'm saying it would probably say under STI, a multisensory approach.
Multi-sensory.
So it won't name Orton Gillingham, but it will say what Orton Gillingham is.
So a multi-sensory approach. I would have no idea what that means.
So you hear multi-sensory, that's what our dyslexics need. So a regular reading program only accesses this left side of their brain. That's where our kids are deficient for whatever reason. Their wiring of the neurology is not as strong on the left side. So what the multi-sensory does is it makes language get acquiesced through multiple parts, multi-part, so that they can learn to read.
Can I speak to that?
Yeah.
They do not want you to specify what program will be used, because there has to be somebody that knows how to use the program, whatever program the district has. They can't bring in, like, go get an Orton Gillingham trained person and bring them in, if that's not what the district does.
So they can, you can sue for that, I did,
Oh, really?
I got it, oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I litigated twice against my district.
But they're not gonna offer that until you.
Until you.
Yeah, so that's why it wouldn't be written in.
Yeah.
Are there other multi-sensory programs?
Yeah, Wilson
that-
is considered, and that, Orton Gillingham is one-on-one, which is why schools avoid that, but, and they're expensive tutors. But Wilson is one that you could do to a group of students. It's similar strategies, but not quite the same. So
But
that, yeah,
yields
there are
a
other
good
ones.
result.
Yes,
It does,
it does.
yeah, Wilson's got a good reputation.
9. But my question is, could they put something else in there that's not really going to meet her needs? Are there,
Okay.
could they misuse multisensory to where I read it and think, oh, they're providing what she needs, but really
Yes.
they're gonna use a program that's
Yep.
not provided?
That's why you gotta stay on top of it.
That's why you have to
Yeah.
see the
That's why I
progress
was looking for
monitor.
the results.
Yeah.
And they're probably, and I don't know, but they're probably not gonna offer that, like, we've never been offered that.
Yeah.
So we're
Oh,
getting
it's
little
not offered.
probes
It's not.
or like a reading sample, like that's what our goals and ratings
Yeah.
are. It's not giving
Goals,
him
yeah.
any alternative.
In the goals, yes, though they would use the weekly probes or the bi-weekly probes, but your SDI is where it should say the multisensory.
The, I didn't get Orton Gillingham until I had a psychologist from CHOP state that my son needed, now we had a dyslexia diagnosis from a neurologist, so they knew he was dyslexic, so I got over that hurdle, I proved like with a brain scan. And then they still wouldn't give the OG or anything. They said multisensory teaching, things would be taught multisensory, but they weren't giving them, they thought like computer program, like Lexia was, or System 44 was providing multisensory. Wasn't the type of multisensory that he needs. Yes, he can hear it now, but he heard it before. But so then we had to get Children's Hospital to do an evaluation, and the doctor had to write, they need a program following, a multisensory program following the methodology of Orton Gillingham. We got that eval, they still wouldn't, and then we litigated it, and the lawyer said, you have a doctor's note saying this is what they need, and they're like, okay, and then they provided it. And he went from a 2nd grade reading level to a 9th grade reading level in 18 months. Yeah, he's got a very, very high IQ, so I don't expect that from him, but he's got a very, very high IQ, so it happened really fast for him.
How old was he?
He was at the end of 5th grade into 6th grade.
1, 6, 1,
Yeah.
7.
Now he still gets Sunday system because he still can't spell. They litigate to get a spelling goal in. So that was the 2nd round of litigation.
This is a stupid question.
There's no stupid questions.
A multi-sensory approach. Can you explain what that means with
Yes.
just one word? Does that mean seeing it, hearing it, saying it,
Feeling it.
feeling it as well?
Yeah, like one of the things my son did, they gave him a mirror and they literally taught him what it would feel like to say those sounds.
Huh.
So he had a mirror that he would look at and he'd be like, all right, CH, and he would look, and
Like in My Fair Lady.
how it felt. Is that,
Well, yeah, I mean.
do they have fans in there? I feel like they have fancy fans in their
Henry
film as well.
Higgins, he
Yeah.
makes her practice on saying the H by saying it into a candle.
Oh, okay.
If the candle doesn't move, you're not saying
You're not
the
saying
H.
it correctly. Yeah, yeah, so it's that. And again, the way the instruction that he got, there was like a number of different things. It was like this rapid fire, and essentially what the instructor explained was, we don't know exactly what's gonna take for your son, so we're giving them all kinds of things. It's lighting his brain up like on fire, and then we're giving it to him over and over and over and over and over again. We're trying to build that neurology. And it worked. I see him still now, and I feel like it was the physical action of doing the mouth thing that worked for him, because I see him when he's reading, he's not making the sound. It's almost like his mouth is, like almost like sign language. His mouth is physically figuring out the reading. That's the best way I can explain it.
So if you get, I'm sorry, an MRI or?
Oh, he had that. That we had to go. My son has a Chiari malformation, so he actually has a physical birth defect that allowed us to get the MRI. They weren't looking for dyslexia, so that's not something you just go to your neurologist and be like, "Hey, scan my kid's brain." We just were lucky that he has this amazing birth defect that allowed him access to the brain scan.
You said most dyslexics don't use the right side or the left side?
The left side, what they found, and there's a lot of whys to why somebody would be dyslexic, but in reference when they look at brain pictures, the neurology doesn't seem to be as developed on the left side of the brain, which is where we hold language and we read language and we store language. And there's a lot of reasons that can happen. So many whys. So a lot of times people will get caught like, why is my kid dyslexic? Why? And again, that's where I like to shift. Let's get to the how. Because you'll beat yourself up today. I didn't breastfeed him. He had an ear infection too long. He did this, he did that, and you get down this spiral of sadness. And it's more like, all right, no, let's just move forward. There's a how that can give us some light and move us forward. So let's be past this, though. All great questions. I just want to make sure we get to like the final part, and then I certainly will take questions. I'm going to be here till 5, and then I have to go home. And then the real work starts. All right, so then the next thing is to determine the STIs, and that's that specifically designed instruction. This is the magic that the teacher's going to do in the classroom to help support your student. And it's okay to go heavy on this. You don't feel like, you're being greedy, asking for things. If you think it's a good idea, Put it in there, have that conversation. And SDIs typically, besides, unless you're referencing a specific reading thing, like she spoke the multisensory, they tend to be free. And a lot of times administrators like to give them out because they don't have to do them. The teacher doesn't have to do them, so they don't get all upset, okay? So once you then get in there, you do your accommodations and your modifications as especially design instruction. So now you go back to your category, and essentially what you have to ask yourself is, does this require specially designed instruction? I'm going to say SDI just because it's easier. It's probably, now I know why everything's an acronym in education. So now we're going to go through and ask ourselves, is this something that my child needs to be supported in? Okay, while they're doing the learning. So improve oral reading fluency, yeah, he's going to need, not only is he going to need the instruction on to get him to read faster, he's also going to need support in his other curricular area. So it's not just he's just going to need support to get him to read faster, he's going to need support in social studies class and science class because he doesn't read as fast as the students, or he can't decode as strong as the students. So there will need to be other supports. Because again, that's the part, I always get really frustrated when I have conversations with reading instructors, reading specialists, no offense to reading specialists, but they go down this rabbit hole and they only talk about the curriculum. I'm like you are 1/12 of the equation. Like this kid leaves you and he goes somewhere else. And that world's really scary, and it's not all about reading. So how do we support them? And how do we get them to learn this stuff without reading? So you want to make sure you have SDIs. Improving decoding skills, again, that's something that he's going to need support in. Written expression, capitalization, absolutely. He's going to need so many supports. I need you to teach him how to write better. I need you to teach him how to do. I need you to provide special instruction to get him to be stronger in those areas. But then I also need you to support him when he's in science class with things to help him write better and different tools to help him do his grammar better while we're developing that skill.
So you're not telling them, they're telling you what you're gonna do to meet that goal.
Oh, well,
Well, I'm
I
sure you
tend
tell them.
to tell them. Yeah, but then you say, all right,
No.
yeah. And a lot of times, yeah, and that's where I like the idea that I have this group, this Facebook group. My son goes to Pennsbury, I have this Facebook group, and we get to chat, like, what is your school doing? My kid's doing this, you know, blah, 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 this, oh, I never thought to ask for that. You know, and my son's IEP is 75 pages long. It's like,
So don't be afraid to ask for more.
I know. 75. Yep. Oh yeah, 75. It's growing every day. I can't wait for high school. And there's strategies to put in place. The other thing too, and this is just something to kind of tell you, having a kid that's a little bit older, is when you're in elementary school, think about what he's going to need in middle school. Because elementary school teachers will be like, sure. And middle school teachers will fight you because middle school teachers, they're going to drive you. Well, in the real world, I got to prep your kid for the real world. I'm like, but he's not in the real world, and he's always going to be disabled, whether we're here or we're there. And I don't know what you know much about the real world. You're like me, you're a teacher. We don't live in the real world. We visit there on weekends. Our entire life. We don't live in the real world, okay? So get the SDI. So like I'm in middle school now, and I'm trying to lay that, because the high school teachers are going to be tough. They're like, I don't want to do this. So I'm trying to lay the SDIs in now. Big thing right now is I want the lectures recorded for them. And high school teachers are going to really struggle with that. Middle school teachers are like, Mrs. Woodard, you're on your way out. Let's get you. No problem. See you later. I find I always schedule an end of the year meeting and revamp the IEP with the team based on what they think you need. They're always so happy from meetings. They give you whatever.
Is that the Notability app?
Huh?
Is that the Notability app that girl
I just heard about that
spoke
today.
about?
Yeah. That's why that's what I'm going to be scheduling a meeting very shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put it on my list.
Yeah.
Notability.
Huh?
Notability.
Yeah, notability, right?
Yeah, she used it for note taking, recording the
And
lectures,
recording.
and then it helped her with note taking.
Is
Yeah.
it NOTE?
I think it's
NOTA.
Notability. I looked it up.
Texting my text.
So again, now I'm going through here and I'm trying to figure out what does he need SDI. He doesn't need an SDI while he's learning keyboarding. So like he doesn't need to be supported in science and math class while so he doesn't need an SDI for that. The SDI, he may need occupational therapy. They put it under the guise of occupational therapy. So it would be written up as he will receive occupational therapy once a week. But I don't need him to be supported in math class or science class, because he's learning to type. And then anxiety. Even though anxiety isn't a goal here, and I don't see that the school is going to improve it, they really need to support it. So we have a lot of different SEIs put in place to support them. So then what you end up with is, so just for improving oral reading fluency, here's a couple ones that we have. Books, assignments, and assessments will be scanned into Jake's Chromebook prior to use in the classroom to allow Jake to read the text on his own or have the Chromebook read it to him. Okay, so that's an STI. So it has nothing to do with the actual reading program, but that's something that he needs in his other curricular areas. Extended time, up to including twice the allotted time. Not half. And also to extended time, be mindful, be really conscious of this when you're putting extended time. And make sure the teacher recognizes that extended time doesn't mean more work. So if my son took an hour and a half to work on 5 problems, and you're on that die-hard 10 problem thing, and he gets an extra night to do it, you're not assigning him new homework the next night. He's doing the work, so now, you know, like, he needs this amount of time. It doesn't mean you just still pile it on, so the pacing has to change. That usually then leads to the discussion of, well, why don't we then limit how many do I really need him to have? Okay, which is a way better. Some teachers go, no, there's 30 questions, he will do 30 questions. Okay, that's fine, but you can't give him any homework until he's done those 30 times, and he gets twice the amount of time. So you're giving him homework on Monday and Wednesday. All right, we'll just make him do 10. So then you can kind of talk your way through that. Directions read aloud, you know, just silly things like that to help with that. And again, in addition to that is the reading instruction that he's going to get, but this is how ways that we can kind of support him in other ways. Things to remember, this is really important. You are a member of the team. The teachers view you as a member of the team. They want you to come in and know this stuff, but how would you know? How would you know, right? How do you know, right? So you're a member of the team. Ask questions. Like, wait, well, I don't understand that acronym. Here's the deal. I don't know what goal it should be, but I really think you could make them better at this. I don't know, I need you to think of every scenario in which him being a slow reader would impact his learning. And then let's brainstorm, you know, and then have that conversation. Second thing is, an IEP can be opened up anytime and changed as often as needed. And again, that goes back to why I would also ask for a digital copy, otherwise your filing cabinet it's so much, it's just so much. And then this is absolutely critical, this drives me insane. My colleagues force parents to come in, and then they paint them into a little box. So there's got to be a quick conversation. You do not have to take a personal day. You do not have to miss work time. It's a mutually agreeable time. You are not supposed to lose money to go to an IEP meeting, and it's not supposed to be something that's real quick and get it over with. So. Huh?
And when the bell rings, it's all done.
Right, and the bell rings like, oh, I gotta go, right? No. And then you just say, like, I'm anticipating it's gonna take an hour to go through this, or I'm anticipating it's gonna be an hour and a half. I would like all of the members, and there's some people, like, I don't need the OT person to stay the whole time. I don't need the gym teacher to stay the whole time. But my core subject area, I do sometimes make the specials because they're the ones that actually, in my son's experiences, the special areas are the ones that violate his IEP the most. It drives me, like, again, like, you're a teacher, you're literally getting paid the same amount as a special education teacher who has this thing memorized. Know your stuff, and don't get mad at me when I call you to the carpet audit. So I tell them, you gotta stay. And then the regular ed teacher's like, they're making you stay.
Explain that again?
So like art class. I'll make the art teacher stay for the whole meeting. Because, like, my son, he's got a physical disability. He can't sew or cut. And the home ec teacher wanted to give him a D on his sewing project. He can't use scissors. Did you notice that? Did you notice he couldn't use scissors? He's literally with the OT person learning how to tie knots. Like, so now they all stay.
Talk to me about how you, so at the high school level for my daughter, at this point now they all come. But up till now I've gotten like one teacher at a time.
At a time?
Yep, one
No.
teacher in a meeting.
With the whole team.
So you say,
Yeah, well, like the whole team, like everybody that works with my child to be there. If I am available, here are 3 dates that I'm available, and with the whole team there.
So would you file a complaint to the Department of Education?
Yes.
If they're
Yep.
not doing that?
Yeah, so if they don't, then you just file a complaint. It's filing a complaint with the Department of Ed is not scary. It's literally an online internet form. Sounds very official.
But here's the sad thing for those of us who are parents who aren't teachers. I having been through IEP meetings for almost 10 years, what were called IEP meetings, first 2 or 3. I never realized until you said that every teacher has to be there.
Well, they don't have to, if you want them to be there.
Well,
You're
I'm
looking
saying-
at them,
but
yeah.
I'm saying,
It's the team, anybody that works with the
I
kid.
did not realize that I could request them
Yeah.
to be at that meeting.
Yep, they're part of the team. They are
So-
working with your children. They are legally required to provide a free, appropriate public education. Yeah, and then when they come to the meeting, you, like if they're like, I gotta go, you sign off and then you write the time down of when they left and you initial it, letting them know, it's okay, I'm not gonna sue you for this one. Yes,
I'm just saying, thank you for bringing that
Yeah.
insight in.
She needs to take her show on the road.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm one of
Yeah,
those
I
ready
do.
reading specialists.
Oh, I'm sorry,
And
I didn't mean to
would
offend
have
you.
loved to have you come to our beginning of the year meeting and tell the parents, because generally my kids, a lot of them were dyslexic.
Yeah.
And of course, my school would never identify anybody as dyslexic, but if the parents would have known all of this,
Yeah,
they could have demanded it, because it didn't matter what I said.
right.
It's not easy to, my daughter was just diagnosed with dyslexia, and I still have the school resisting me. So
Yeah.
even, I mean,
It's
I don't,
hard,
I
man.
don't communicate like her.
Well,
I don't know all
I'm
this shit,
gonna-
so I'm not like, look,
I
this is what
also-
I'm going, this is what you're gonna do because of X, Y, and Z.
I also bring dragon fire everywhere I go.
I
Releasing
could use some of that.
during the
But I
meeting,
have a piece of
and
paper
then that scares
from
them.
an independent psychologist that the school,
Yeah,
Well, I'm actually.
I myself used to get TSS around services.
okay, yeah.
Now that every
But
child
that's
is
for
in
behavioral
special
health.
schools, I never.
However, to do those children, you could only get TSS if they had nine.
Correct, yes, so there's, so
Why can't the same thing exist
her
for
school.
it does, it's just a different classification, so the students that you were with, it used to be called ES, emotional support, and now it's like ED is what the classification, emotional disturbance. So dyslexics come under specific learning disability, but they can still have behavioral issues that would need a one-on-one. My son has like a, I think in science class, he still has someone that's in there to help monitor because he can get a little anxiety ridden.
Our IEP does not have anything.
Yeah, that's great, that's awesome.
So then she would qualify for TSS.
And well, if you can have classroom support, and that's typically an administrative decision to provide support. So when, so this is a good, I wanna, she just pointed something out about, she's calling it, what do you call it, TSS?
TSS, therapeutic staff support.
Okay, therapeutic staff support. So that would definitely come through the behavioral stuff. But if you wanted like a teaching assistant or like another person in your class, what I've done is when my son's school, middle school, this is just something that worked for me, his middle school only had support for the teacher in English and math because those were the tested areas. So social studies and science, the teacher didn't get any support. And it's a 75-page IEP. I'm asking them to do a lot. So I would, at the meeting, say, okay, with the principal, because the principal, the head of special ed, whatever, they're always there at my meetings. I would say, all right, now teachers, I need you to tell me in earnest, can you do these things in your regular day without support? And then it kind of gets quiet, and I'm like, so Mr. Social Studies teacher, you can get all of your documents uploaded in advance, provide me with all of the study guides 3 days in advance, provide me with, and I start going through all the things that the teacher needs to do with the principal there, and then I'll say, I'm not certain that you can actually do all of those things in that time, and I've been able to get TAs put in to help support.
Is that the high school level?
That was at the middle school level, I got that, yeah. So that was a strategy that I was able to get an additional, wasn't a teacher, but it was a teaching assistant that essentially could help with paperwork and all those things. Yeah. All right, we got a new group in?
Thank you.
You're welcome, I think we did some good work.